I feel like my life was a lot more peaceful when I didn't know what an Omni-Man was. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jessica, and over on this channel we usually talk about comic books, films, TV, superheroes, mostly superheroes. I feel like I should start this video with a disclaimer saying I know I said I wouldn't do TV or film reviews because I haven't been feeling up to it lately. I feel like every time I say I'm not gonna do something, the next video I do exactly the thing I said I wouldn't do. But when I watched Invincible, I just knew that I had to talk about this. Now, I didn't even know about the existence of the show until a few weeks ago. I know it was on at the same time that Falcon and the Winter Soldier was on, and I was keeping up with that weekly, but I had been on a social media, mostly Twitter break for like 1 or 2 months at the time, and it wasn't until I came back when everyone in my feed was like reading Invincible, and I was like, what is going on? What did I miss? Now, the first thing that I'm going to talk about is our main character, who is Mark Grayson, our superhero Invincible. Voiced by Steven Yeun. He is a half Viltrumite, so his dad is from this alien planet called Viltrum, and also half human. By the way, if the title didn't already make it clear, this video is going to be full of spoilers, so if you don't want to hear any of that, maybe come back until after you've seen it. So Mark Grayson, what I loved about him as a character is that he was just so easy to fall in love with, and I haven't really seen a superhero character that I could truly relate to in a long time. There are a lot of superhero characters that I've loved and I enjoy seeing on screen, and the closest comparison that people make for this show is a comparison to The Boys. And I love The Boys, I love all the characters in The Boys, but you know, they're not relatable people, and that's what I love about this show and all the characters in this universe. They actually feel like characters you could relate to. Most of these heroes feel like actual people, not like caricatures of values, or it doesn't really feel like the writers are using these characters simply as a vessel to convey their message through, which I think when you're dealing with superhero characters, you can run the risk of falling into that a little bit, and that's not always a bad thing. You know, I feel like superheroes are symbols to a certain extent, but this show does a fantastic job at just making everyone so human. And with that comes the complexities of being human without making them boring, because even in the scenes where they're not off fighting things, even though those are my favorite scenes, the action scenes are amazing, I really just enjoyed following Mark Grayson in his family life, in his school life. Mark Grayson's family life is actually one of my favorite things in the show, because superheroes don't often get families, and if they do, they die very quickly, or they're kind of just like their tragic backstory, or they're very removed from them. And I've seen a lot of people kind of refer to the scenes where Mark's in his house with both his parents as kind of like sitcom-like scenes, because you have Debbie Grayson, who is an Asian American woman who married this alien, this Viltrumite, who came to protect the Earth, because the backstory with his dad's character is that he's a superhero who comes from a race of people who deploy basically like one soldier each to different planets that they want to protect. Now, I will be talking about spoilers regarding Mark's dad, Nolan Grayson, also known as Omni-Man, and his origins, but for right now, this family dynamic between these three, it was definitely one of the best parts of the show. It made for great humor, it made for great tension, because slowly you start to realize that you can't trust Omni-Man, and both Mark and his mother come to that realization at different speeds. I'm just gonna say it right now, Debbie Grayson is my second favorite character in the show. I love a good mother figure to a superhero. We don't really see that often. We don't see mothers who are alive, who are not named Martha. So in terms of Mark's character arc in the show, he follows the journey into being a superhero because he's always wanted to be like his dad. His powers haven't really kicked in yet until the first episode, and once they do, he starts training with his father. And Omni-Man, he is quite in a unique position in terms of being a superhero, because he generally works alone and he is regarded as the strongest superhero in this universe. So you can tell he's like a heavy hitter. And this universe also has their own group that's kind of like their version of the Justice League, and even complete with like very similar characters. You have like the Wonder Woman character, the Flash character, the Batman, and the Aquaman. It's kind of funny. I thought when I first saw them, I was like, oh, this feels like a parody. And I was a little bit worried as to how they would handle that. But by the end of the first episode, I was like, all right, I'm not worried at all. They are going in an entirely different direction, which I'm terrified of, but I'm here for the ride. And Omni-Man's like Viltrumite background is shrouded in a lot of secrecy and a lot of mystery that you don't really get to learn anything about until the end of the season. Now here's where the spoilers kick in. So at the end of that first episode, when we see Omni-Man absolutely slaughtering the Guardians, the superhero team, so he called in all of them one by one to join at their like secret lair, their home base, and he comes in and all of them are surprised that he called him in. They're like, what's the emergency, Omni-Man? And without saying a single word, he just kills them. I cannot emphasize how graphic this show is, so I guess that's also like a warning to people who might not be able to stomach it. Yes, it is animated, but I haven't seen a superhero show that goes this far in terms of the violence, but I will say that it works for them because I feel like every act of violence carries so much weight, and I genuinely felt like pains in my chest when I saw people like getting punched through the heart or like torn from limb to limb. I was stressed. I tweeted, I was like, I feel like I'm going into cardiac arrest after watching this show. And I guess that's also a common complaint that I have with a lot of superhero films, where the violence doesn't seem proportional to the impact that it has on the person. It's like someone gets like punched, or like people get like bounced off buildings and like nothing happens to them. Whereas I feel like in this show, it does carry a lot of weight, and every time someone carries out an act of violence, it's painful. And I think especially in the context of Omni-Man and Mark, the reason why it's so difficult to watch, it's because you know that Mark is such an innocent child at this point. He's like 17, he's still excited about his powers, about his dad, and seeing Omni-Man just use his powers in a way that absolutely has no respect for human life whatsoever, it kind of makes you scared for Mark, in the sense that I'm afraid for you because your father is like this, and you kind of want to shield him from it. Like, I felt so maternal towards Mark in this show, but also at the same time, you're afraid because you know that he has the exact same set of powers, and so you see how he could potentially become like his father. Now, on that note, I will say that this show does an excellent job at making people stick by their values and by their characters. I like how Mark stays a good guy throughout the whole show, despite everything that happens to him, and him eventually learning that his father is this crazy, psychopathic, murdering, colonial, genocidal person. And even though you know how much Mark idolizes his dad, like, I feel like there wasn't a doubt, at least in my mind, that he would do the right thing, that he would stick by his guns, and that he wouldn't let this kind of cloud his judgment, going against his father, knowing that what he's doing is wrong. And there are a lot of other characters like this as well. Like Adam Eve is another character who I really liked in the show. I was like very skeptical of the love triangle they put her in with Mark, her and Amber, and I have like separate feelings about that. But in terms of her character, there was also so many opportunities for her to like turn bad or turn into a villain. But at every turn, she constantly does the right thing, even when you see that it's difficult for her. Also, the same thing goes for the new members of the Guardians. So after the original set were killed by Omni-Man, they started recruiting for newer members. Some of them were kind of moved from like a teen squad, and they were like promoted into joining the Guardians. And a lot of these teen characters had so many problems, so many issues between them, like Rexplode, which is like a really funny name, Monster Girl, and Duplicate as well. You could tell that they all have their issues. So they may not be like the nicest people or like superheroes in the sense that they're good role models for other people, but they're always doing the right thing and they're good at heart. And that's kind of what this show, I felt, consistently portrayed. It's like no matter what happens to a lot of these kids, and a lot happens to them, I'm like, they need so much therapy, they need so much love and care. They kind of hold themselves together with just their very strong moral compass. So I was very impressed by that. And apart from our big bad, who is Omni-Man, there are also a couple of other great villains in the show. My favorite as well is probably the Mauler twins. I enjoyed every second that they were on screen. Also love that like every time they were on screen they started playing like Run the Jewels as their like background music. I like them and they were really fun. They were these really like big hulking sets of twins. Well, one of them is like a clone of each other and that's their superpower. They're like super intelligent, super smart. I like how that's kind of unique, you know? You don't really get like strength-based characters who are also massively intelligent in the way that they were. So I thought that was like such a fresh take on like archetypes of villains. They always had their own agenda, but it was kind of great just like seeing how all of these different characters were weaved into the main story. I think that's also another thing that I really appreciated and I was really impressed by in this show. Because I feel like when you're introducing people, the audience, to a new universe, so if it's not like an established one like DC and Marvel, you really should take the time to expand on the world building, and like a way to do that is to have these like separate storylines that you don't have to converge them all into like one in the end, because I don't think that always works. That's a very difficult thing to do unless your plot does require that. But it's more like a web, you know, you have like this person connected to this person and this person connected to this person, and the story kind of like takes you to different places. And Mark is usually the one, our hero Invincible, he's the one who carries us and connects us to all these plot lines, but not always. There are some plot lines that go on without him. And it's successful because they make every character and every part of this world so interesting that even though it's like not the main character on screen, you're like, I am so invested in knowing about these guys and what they're doing. The story is so tight and so well paced. It's only 8 episodes, so and I think it's like 40 to 50 minutes long, so it's not really a big time commitment, and you can see how every episode kind of stood on its own as well. I know that's kind of like people would expect episodes to be able to stand on their own right now, but I can't say that for a lot of shows, really. And it's so well written in a way that if you like look back at the episodes after you finish the whole show, you start to see how they've been planting clues that led to basically the finale, and how reveals were already hinted at before, especially when it comes to Omni-Man's big reveal that he was a colonizer. There are like certain things in the earlier episodes where you're like, this seems really sus, or like, I don't think a normal person would say that, but you can't really attribute it to anything and you have literally no proof. But at the end, you're like, ooh, that makes absolute sense now. So there's a really nice sense of continuity in the episodes. They don't just forget about things. They don't forget about plot lines. They don't drop things. Anyways, that is my review on Invincible. What did you think of the show? Did you know about the comics when you first watched it? How did you think they adapted it if you had read the comics beforehand? And if you're completely new to the show as I was, who was your favorite character on the show? What did you think about that big reveal at the end? Did you see it coming? Did you not? What did you think about the violence, the gore? And I'm so happy that I actually did find out about this show, and also glad that I went in knowing absolutely nothing about it. If you enjoyed this review, please like and leave a comment, and also consider subscribing if you're new to this channel. I really appreciate you guys stopping by here and listening to what I have to say about these various media. I will see you for the next one. Have a great week ahead and take care. Goodbye!